Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look. Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. We have Larry on his mountaintop. Unfortunately, he's lost his web situation because of heavy rains and thunderstorms, I guess. And hi, Larry. How you doing?
Oh, having a time. It's been storming, one lightning storm after another since yesterday evening, and it has not even let up. We've got a huge moisture coming up out of the Gulf of Mexico that is clashing over us here with a cold front coming down out of Canada, I guess. And I mean, we're getting hammered, and I don't even know the amount of rainfall. It's like the bottom drops out every few minutes.
Wow. Well, of course, you remember the bots. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to mention to the listeners that follow my blog, I apologize. I really do apologize. I haven't had the availability of the internet since yesterday, and I cannot post. So I couldn't even post the show, Stuart. If they'll just have some patience, maybe tomorrow will be a brighter day.
Yeah, I know. Well, aside from being shadow banned and all that stuff, they're one by one getting rid of everybody that is not a New World Order boy or girl. And this is going to continue, and I hope folks really begin to realize that, and we'll check our websites, Larry's and mine, to find out if there's a show going on. Here we are on Halloween Eve, and wanted to make a little comment about that, because tonight, thousands of people will be tortured, raped, and killed in satanic sacrifices all over America. This is a very high occultic holiday, and I don't think the Lord's going to be very, very happy with it. And one of these days, he's going to mock the apostasy from just about anything. We're in a situation here where it's hard to believe that people who otherwise appear to be totally normal engage in this kind of stuff. It's not only in your cities. It's in your smaller cities. It's in your towns. It's also in the rural areas. And this is going on all over America. It's not just America either. This is a global holiday for the occult, but it's especially prevalent here in the United States. And one more reason why God is going to destroy the United States. And there's absolutely no question that he's going to. You may remember, and Larry, I want you to comment on this too, because I want to read something here. I brought you the Communist Manifesto, the Rothschild Manifesto, the Humanist Manifesto. All of these things, this is extremely powerful forces that are invisible, so you don't really notice it. You have to really be looking around to find out how all of these things are actually going down. If you took the communist points of view, I think there's like 45 points they wanted. I think there's only about 3 left to be done. And we may be coming up on that, of course, with this border military invasion that's going on. And Larry's got some news on that, and so don't I. But this is all part of, how do I say, the worship of Satan in America. Now, a lot of Americans don't realize it when they dress up their kids to go out and trick-or-treat or do all that, have no idea what they're really doing. And they should have no part in it. And I'm not talking about works. I'm talking about just general knowledge of what it is. People should have nothing to do with it and turn their back on it totally and not have it. Anyway, I wanted to read another manifesto, if you want to call it that. Very, very real. It merges in with the manifestos I've read. This is what you are up against. This has infiltrated all over the United States. You may not hear it that way, but that's what it is. And anyway, it's called the New Age Manifesto. Point number 1, the principal aim of the plan is to establish a one-world New Age religion and a one-world political and social order. The Pope has talked to the UN about all this. Everybody is in on this. Psalm 2, the kings of the earth and the rulers gather themselves together against the Lord and against his anointed. Well, if people can't figure that one out, they got a lot of problems. Point number 2, the New Age world religion will be a revival of the idolatrous religion of ancient Babylon, in which mystery cults, sorcery and occultism, and immorality flourished. Now, Halloween is kind of fills in on some of this, but this goes on all over the place. It even goes on in Christian churches. It's amazing what's going on. And people think, well, you know, there's hope for America. Donald's going to save us. Donald Trump is not going to save you. I hate to tell you that, but the Bible is very, very emphatic. Do not put your trust in anyone, particularly when it comes to truth. The book is the Bible is the only book you have that will tell you the truth. And because most people don't study it and don't live on it, and that's basically, it gets absorbed into you so that you become almost like a walking Bible. I don't know. People just aren't doing it. They don't seem to care. And I think, Larry, you would agree with that, right? They don't seem to care anymore. It's part of the great apostasy, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree, Stuart. And what's so interesting about the church, you would think, church that followed the words of Jesus, you know, they all claim that they have to provide an alternative to the parishioners or the congregations to replace what goes on Halloween night. And a lot of that, they have pulled Halloween right into their churches. And it's so interesting. It's not like, Stuart, that they say, oh, Halloween is bad, so we're not going to participate or do this, because all the families want to. So, yes. Stuart, I don't know how you get around that, I think, and I'll share a little bit of a dream a little later on in the program when
yes.
you want me to. I'll tell you, you know, it's amazing, and we never even consider what the Lord thinks of that.
Yeah, well, I got a feeling I'm beginning to know what he thinks of that when you read the how do I say, the prophecies against Babylon the Great. I think we get a clue as to what he really thinks of that whole thing. And the people do not realize that when the Lord comes down upon you with a vengeance, which he's going to do, he's extremely angry. He has every right to be. And, you know, we're all fallen creatures, and we struggle just to get through life. But the rejection of the scriptures and the help in Proverbs and the Psalms and all that seems to be being negated. When the American people spend more on Halloween than they do on Christmas, and I don't want to get into the Christmas holidays and what that actually means either, but these are all pagan holidays that have been, how do I say, Christianized. And some of them aren't all that bad, but they are, how do I say, twisted or perverted in their meanings. Anyway, now Halloween is a very interesting, I can't pronounce the word, but tomorrow is actually the day where they celebrate the raising of the dead, which is kind of interesting, because the raising of the dead is a Christian rapture. from the Lord's point of view, where he says he will raise the dead first, and we which are alive and who remain will be with him in the air, and then we go back to the Father's house. So it's very, very interesting. Anyway, point number 3, the plan is to come to fullness when the New Age Messiah, Antichrist, with the number 666, comes in the flesh to lead the unified New World Religion, New Age World Religion, and oversee the new One World Order. It was George H.W. Bush who first came out publicly. We already knew about it because people who study their Bible obviously knew about it prophetically, but H.W. Bush was the first one to really publicly come out and talk about the New World Order, and did so right in the UN. So it wasn't like it was being hidden. He told everybody what was coming, and nobody really believes any of this stuff, I don't think, or they do not believe what it actually means to them. And they take advantage of human nature because most people are hardworking, they're busy raising their children, and they just flat don't have time for all this, which, of course, the New World Order boys and girls know all about that. And so they keep you busy. Most people do not realize that baseball is a Masonic deal. A baseball diamond is a compass and a square, and yet most people wouldn't realize that. And this is how they operate. And so they get people mesmerized for baseball, football, hockey, basketball. All of these games and sports are the big idols, I would have to say, probably. What do you think, Larry? I think those are the big idols of the American people right now.
Yeah, and it's so amazing that a number of those idols actually won't even stand for the American flag or,
yes.
Anything about America. I mean, we have seen, it's what's interesting, Stuart, is the fact that, yes, absolutely, these sports, I guess you could call them kings, or they're all idols now, and they worship these people. And it's almost like I was watching some news earlier today. My internet's down, but my TV was working, and I was watching some news on Lou Dobbs, and they were talking how that it's so ironic in America that not only are the Republicans and the Democrats and the deep state, but the mainstream media are all bringing an end to America with what they're doing. And it's like that literally everything that people in America thought they could look up to is bringing an end to everything they know.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, it was pointed out to me by a fellow who's done, he's a mathematician. He's never been right so far, but I love to listen to him because he comes up with all these events that take place and how the numbers all work out, and it's like the Lord is really tightening down on the signs and showing us, okay, this happened on this date, and this is what it means. But anyway, he pointed out something very, very interesting. It was a sign on the World Series, and it was kind of interesting that a World War II fighter crash-landed in Los Angeles during the time of the World Series. And it was painted with a swastika, and it landed on one of their throughways. But what he was pointing out was, isn't it interesting that World War II was when America began to rise as a global power? So he was wondering if the crash of that plane, which represented World War II, was representing the crash of the United States. And that is coming down, and it's going to come down very, very fast, like Dmitri Duduman and some of these other people who have done the prophecies, been shown visions by the Lord. And it's just kind of interesting. Okay, getting back to the New Age agenda. Point number 4, spirit guides, demons, will help man inaugurate the new age and will pave the way for the Antichrist, the new age man God, to be acclaimed by humanity as the great world teacher. This is kind of interesting, too, in view of some of the remarks that Obama's been making recently. He said, when I'm paraphrasing him, but he basically said that we're going to enter into a time of darkness and trouble, and I am the one who can lead you out of it, basically is what he meant. Pretty astounding to be coming from a guy. But that's what he believes. And, of course, Donald Trump says he's the only one who can do it. So here we go. I guess one can take their pick. Point number 5, world peace, love, and unity will be the rallying cries of the new world religion. What are we hearing on our TV now? Unity. We've got to get over all this fighting. We must unite. We must come together. Do you see how that works? You stir up hatred. You stir up all kinds of chaos. And then when you've got the people infected with all this, you say, well, we've got to come together. This is going to lead to bad times. And, of course, it is, like the next American Revolution. I got something from Steve Quayle on that, kind of interesting. I guess he was on Hagman or someplace and said, watch out. I believe the revolution's already started, but it's going to go hot pretty soon. What do you think, Larry, on that one? Because that's what we're hearing is unity. We got to be unified. We can't do this.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Stuart. And I did see, yesterday I was able to see his report, but and of course he's been saying that this has been building for a long, long time, that the powers that be have been bringing us to this point, and of course they have. It's not even really a question. If you look back at all, you can see where we are as a nation because we have been brought here. This was not just moving forward on our own. This was totally influenced outside our nation, and it began to manipulate inside our nation, and now here we are. And so you're exactly right.
Okay, point number 6. The New Age teachings are to be taught and propagated in every sphere of society around the globe. Now, of course, that's being taught and has been taught pretty much in our schools, starting in grade school, going up through. How they've, omitted Christmas, and of course Donald Trump's fighting back and say we can say Christmas, but I was just reading an article there a little bit ago where they can't because they were afraid of being sued or they were afraid of offending somebody. So you got to watch what's going on, not what they're telling you. Obama tried to gut Christianity out of our military. They forbid chaplains, for example, from using the name Jesus Christ. Can't do that. And on it goes. Okay, number 7. New Age leaders and believers will spread the apostasy that Jesus is neither God nor the Christ. I find that kind of interesting because that's actually coming out of some of our churches now. It's all part of this great apostasy. Point number 8, Christianity and all other religions are to become integral parts of the new world order religion. What's the Pope doing over there in Rome? Trying to bring all the religions together. And he's having a pretty good job at it. He's doing very well with it. Point number 9, Christian principles must be discredited and abandoned. What do you think, Larry? I think we're pretty much there.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting, Stuart, that, you and I are old enough that we remember when you could literally preach on a corner in a town. Yes. You could pray out on the street. You could pray for people in public places. And, I could actually, years ago, I could hold meetings at, Christian meetings at libraries and public buildings. Now, Stuart, it's a total different ball game, and almost everything involving the Lord Jesus Christ has been erased from America.
Yeah. Reminds me of the movie The Eraser, because that's exactly what they've done to Jesus. They've erased him. He doesn't exist anymore. Okay, number 10, children will be spiritually seduced, think Halloween for one thing, and indoctrinated in the classrooms to promote New Age dogma. Now, I don't know if you remember all the symbology that was used for Obama when he came to power. It was all New Age symbolism, every bit of it. He's a man for all seasons and for all religions. Watch out for Barack Obama. I know there's a lot of people out there saying, well, we're never going to see him again. Don't be so sure about that, because you very well may not only see him, but you will wish you hadn't seen him. Because if he does come to power, he's going to come to power and have a severe hatred for anybody who is a Christian, who voted for Donald Trump, who wants to support Israel. Look out. Hopefully Donald will keep this thing in bay for a while yet, but I don't trust him either. I don't trust anybody. I know what the prophecies against America say, and I'm watching them being fulfilled to the letter. And so I don't have a lot of hope other than for maybe a slight delay, that he's delaying the Lord's return. Point number 11, flattery will be employed to entice the world into believing that man is a divine God. The book of Enoch says that thinking themselves gods, evil will be multiplied among them. And, of course, this goes in, it dovetails totally with all the other, the Humanist Manifesto, communists, they're all godless. Man is God, we're gods, and we're little gods. And let's see, point number 12, science and the New Age world religion will become one. Now, we're watching that happen right before our very eyes, that science has now become a god of its own. And if science tells you something, that's got to be true. And if it opposes the Bible, well, obviously the Bible is wrong. So anyway, you got all that going. Then number 13, which is where it ends, Christians who resist the plan will be dealt with, i.e., rounded up, put in FEMA camp, tortured, and killed. They will be eliminated, and the world will be purified. The plan has such tremendous consequences for mankind and for Christianity that we cannot neglect to take stock of what is going on before our very eyes. Every Christian man and woman must face up to the harsh realities that there is, in fact, a New Age plan for a one-world religion and one-world government, one-world economic system. We're watching it happen, and it's just going to keep getting worse. Anyway, what do you think, Larry? I mean, I just think that's pretty much says it all.
Yeah, and very interesting what you said about science being a god, because I most recently have read some information and listened to some scientists that have said that science now has begun to literally give out false realities and not even tell the truth anymore, because they're so owned by corporations and governments that they can no longer reveal the truth. They have to follow the party line. So science being a god, you've got a lying God telling you those things. And, of course, when I say that, I really immediately remember Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah. if his mouth was moving, or lips were moving, he was lying. I remember that. Science, with their microscopes, with their telescopes, will never find God. Even with CERN, they will never find God. They can't. It's an impossibility. They can maybe find out how the Lord constructed things, but they will never find him himself that way. John 5:38 through 40. And ye have not his word abiding in you, for whom he has sent him, ye believe not. He's talking about himself, Jesus. Search the scriptures, for in them ye think ye have eternal life. And they are they which testify of me. And you will not come to me that you might have life. So they're never going to find God the way they're doing it. The only way you're going to find God is exactly the way Jesus Christ ordered you to find him, which he did order you to seek him out, find him. Seek, ask, knock, strive, labor. And if you pound on the door long enough, it's like the guy the parable. I love that parable where this guy goes to a house and it's at midnight pretty much, and he pounds on the door and keeps pounding on the door. And the person inside the house says, "Go away! I'm in bed with my children. Don't keep bothering me." Well, the guy just keeps pounding on the door and pounding on the door. And finally, he gets up and he says, opens the door and says, "What do you want?" He says, "I want 3 loaves of bread. I'm going on a journey." Kind of interesting when you really figure out what that parable is all about. And that parable really is about pounding on that door. Why did the guy get up? Well, Jesus says, do you think he got up because he was a friend? No, he got up because of importunity. And if you look up the word importunity, it means rude, incessant behavior. Well, that's been lost on Christians today totally. And ye will not come to me that you might have life. It doesn't say believe in me. Doesn't say have faith in me. It says come to me that you will have life. And all of these things are totally lost on today's Christianity, and I don't want to get into that. We got too much news. Here's something, Larry. In a press conference at the U.S. Customs and Border Protection headquarters, Washington, D.C., officials from the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, explained what is being sent to the southern border in response to the migrant caravans. They still will not tell the truth that this is a fifth column operation. It's a military operation, and it's disguised so that the snowflakes and the bleeding hearts will want to let these people in. Now, we have, according to the Bible, a fifth column operation already here. They've been coming in for years, taking up residence. And when the shout is given, as in Isaiah, they will rise up and burn the cities, and there will be riots like you have never witnessed before. Anyway, this is what this really is, and they're not telling you the truth either. U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Kevin McClellan and General Terrence I can't pronounce that, commander of the U.S. Northern Command, laid out the operation. Now, they've raised this. They got 5,200. Trump just said 15,000. Did you see that on TV at all, Larry?
Yes, I did. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Lou Dobbs gave the latest report, even General Jack Keane, and the reports coming out now indicate Trump will put as many troops on the border as he needs to, and that they will do what they need to do. By the way, the latest is, and they're not reporting this first caravan. There.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can now. You broke up there for a little bit.
Okay, what they're not telling the people is there are now, according to Fox News on Lou Dobbs tonight, 5 caravans of people that are coming.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not telling it, but a lot of them, and I've listened to some of the data from insiders inside Mexico that are saying that a lot of these are not only MS-13, they're people from other nations. They're ISIS, some of them, and they say that almost all of these are ex-military coming in. These are not good guys, and the other caravans have bombs and guns. Matter of fact, there's shootouts now between the Mexican police and some of the caravan people. This is a bad deal, but America is just walking into oblivion, Stuart. The American mindset is just not aware.
Yeah, it's an American death wish, and these people that want all these people in here, well, they may get their wish, but they'll wish they never had wished it. Let's put it that way. But I would say it's going to be 15 to 30,000 military troops if Trump is actually going to do something. Here's what the list is. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, 3 combat engineer battalions, 3 medium-lift helicopter companies, 3 ACE-130s, 1 C-17, military police units, and medical units. What do you think of that list?
Well, I think, Stuart, that list is probably close to accurate, but I think there's more coming, and according to some experts that are not really sticking it out much right now, they're saying where we're being told they are thousands of miles away and it'll be a month before they get here. That's not true. They're closer than you think.
And they aren't walking either. All these pictures and videos of all these people walking, that's, how do I say this? It's a wag the dog. These people are being transported by cars, trucks, all kinds of equipment. George Soros is funding most of this. In fact, I think it was Lou Dobbs that got himself in a lot of trouble because he aired a guy that knew what was going on and told him what was really happening and who was funding it. This is a communist operation. The UN is deeply involved, and you don't hear that either. Here's another headline. Trump ain't playing. Video shows hundreds of military vehicles being shipped to the border. Now these, unfortunately, the pictures, are tanks. And I don't think you need tanks to be going to the border. But you might need tanks if they're going down to Venezuela. What have you heard about this Venezuelan? You know, they had those ships, and this guy was showing on YouTube how they were trying to camouflage these ships, and they weren't sure whether they were American, China, or Russian ships, all amassing off of Venezuela. What was your latest before you went down on that? What's really going on down there?
Well, the data that it seems to be, the intelligence that's leaking out, of course, none of this is mainstream media, period. The intelligence, though, that's been coming out is indicating that there are 2 possible fleets down there, apparently Chinese and Russian and other ships off the coast of Venezuela, and then another fleet of U.S. coalition that's observing those. And you're exactly right, Stuart. The latest data, there's a shocking new presidential election in Brazil where the new electee is just like Trump. And he is also working with Trump. And not only is Colombia sending troops to the border with Venezuela, there's a report that the new Brazilian president is moving 17,000 armed troops to the border to assist against Venezuela. And it sounds like and this is the data, Stuart. People can believe it or not believe it. But there are reports now that the Chinese and the Russians and ISIS forces are heavily involved, including some of the Middle Easterners, that have infiltrated Venezuela, and that it is a terrorist hotbed and fomenting an actual invasion towards the U.S. And I think that's what we've got. You're not going to hear it on mainstream media, but I'm telling people they better find out what's going on, and as long as you and I have the ability, we'll try to warn people. But it is very possible, Stuart, some of the generals have been talking, too, in the background about Trump sending armies, tanks, etc., into Mexico. So this thing may get a lot bigger than people have any idea, Stuart.
So, when I was being shown these pictures of all these tanks, what would they need tanks to patrol the border with? You're certainly not going to machine gun a bunch of people. Well, of course, maybe you would. I guess you'd have to if you have to. I mean, I have kind of a tough attitude. You either have a border or you don't. You're either going to defend your border or you're not. And if these people are just allowed to run rampant over the border, then actually the amount of traffic, I was just reading this today, over the border is higher than it's ever been. And that makes you wonder exactly what is going on and whether this is going to be stopped or whether it's not going to be stopped. There are reports, and I've heard both ways, that he's just going to put up a bunch of tent cities and house these people. But if you read some of the articles about, and I know what you've heard, Larry, about the Homeland Security chief, well, just catch and release. So there's something going on down there that we're not aware of. But a war, Trump some time ago talked about possibly having to invade Venezuela because of the situation down there economically, and it was kind of like, well, these poor people down there, and we've got to go in there and fix it. That's kind of a UN operation type thing. That's what they say. That they gave themselves the right to go into any nation in the world that they declare is a humanitarian crisis, and therefore they have to come in and fix it. And that includes the United States, by the way, folks. They can come in here anytime. If we have a civil war, you will see UN troops, guarantee it. We got UN vehicles, military-type vehicles, hardened against EMP and all that. Thousands of them have been reported and taken pictures of all over the United States. This is not, they're getting ready. They're getting ready for a takeover. And as far as I can see, they're going to win biblically, and it's a judgment against the Lord. Anyway, here's another one, Larry. Border Patrol warns Texas landowners about possible armed civilians in the area due to a caravan report. U.S. Border Patrol this week told Texas landowners along the U.S.-Mexican border to prepare for a possible influx of armed civilians on their property as the migrant caravan, they keep calling it that. The Associated Press reported these civilians say they intend to support the National Guard and Border Patrol to prevent these migrants from crossing over. What do you think? I mean, this could go down where the civilians begin to take matters into their own hands because the government isn't doing anything.
Well, Stuart,
how does this go down with the people? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Stuart, isn't it their land? Isn't it the American people's land? They cannot defend it.
Well, no, not anymore.
We're very, very, very close, Stuart, to people defending their own homes and their own land, and probably being outlaws for doing it.
I read an article just the other day where some lady had cut down a tree and gotten all kinds of trouble. No, it's not your land anymore, folks. Agenda 21/30 is already infiltrated into much of the United States, where they just your land rights of your own property are now the property of the United Nations, and most people don't realize it because they've never come up against government. But if you go into I can't even remember, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and some of these departments of national resources, just take a look at what they could do. I was on a watershed board years ago, and I could not believe when I started investigating it what powers the local watershed board has. They can actually literally tell a farmer when to plant, what to plant, how to plant it, how he's going to do it, when he's going to harvest it, etc. It's not his land anymore. People don't realize that because they don't run into it, because it's never been, how do I say, implemented. But the laws are there. They can be implemented any time, and they surely will be if we go into a martial law situation where you have no constitutional rights, you don't have any Bill of Rights, you don't have any rights. The only right you have is to obey the orders. That's your right. That's the only right you have. And like Larry and I have said before, this is going to lead to a revolution. I don't think there's any way out of it. But what bothers me is that when you have ruler against ruler, authority against authority, and you have a revolution going on, and you've got Trump mouthing off about how he's going to increase the military and how he's going to increase the nuclear bombs and how he's going to do this and that, and you got all these enemies like China, like Russia. Xi has ears, he can hear. Putin has ears, he can hear. The North Korean guy, Rocket Man, he has ears, he can hear. You think they're going to sit back and allow the United States to rearm itself? And then it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So unless they're willing to introduce the TR-3Bs, anti-gravity, and all that, which I don't think they will do, because after all, Deep State says America has to go down in order to come into the new world order. So we have to be taken over. And it was very interesting. Another thing I noticed on the World Series, it was the Red Sox that won the World Series, and the Dodgers lost. Red, think communists. The Dodgers lost. In other words, we can't dodge what is coming. There's no way around this. The Lord is sick and tired of the American people, the American Christian, and he's going to severely punish us. Millions are going to perish in this. Millions. And it's just too bad. And billions, actually, when around the world. But we are going into a very, very serious situation. And here's another one. President of the Texas militia, told Associated Press he already has members at 3 points in the state's border, expects 25 to 100 more people to arrive in the coming days. Militia members and volunteers patrolling the border is a practice that has been in place actually for decades, but now they're beefing it up. Now, they usually, when they spot a trespasser, contact Border Patrol, but these guys are now armed. I think, Larry, who was it that said we have stashes of military weapons that were put there by deep state operatives, communist operatives, all along the border? So when these people come across, they know exactly where to go to get the weapons. And we'll be at war.
Yeah, there was a number of people that spoke about that, and that was all done under Obama. Obama spent millions buying up ammunition stocks and bringing in arms. They're all over the country. Matter of fact, I heard that they had located some during the Houston, Texas hurricane and flooding that were revealed when they began to search for bodies. They unlocked portable locations and found arms and ammunition already ready for somebody to just come arm themselves. So this has been going a long time. And you know what, Stuart? I thought the other day about, remember years ago, there was an invasion planned for coming up through the same route, and
yes.
a hurricane went backwards and destroyed everything they were going to use. So this time, instead of setting it up in Mexico, I think it's planned or pre-planned for them to find their arms inside the U.S. when they arrive.
Yeah, I noticed that Hal Turner said something about, and I've read, I don't know how you vet something like this, but more or less said that it's a military pincer movement that they're going to use. The people coming across will be heavily armed, and I'm sure they've got stashed stuff along the border of Mexico on the Mexican side. I mean, Mexico does not like anything to do with America other than, sending their people up here. So you could have a major war develop. And, if some of these landowners get shot at, they're going to shoot back. And then the war's on. Because that's how it works. Anyway, he says, we go about our business here every day in a peaceful manner. The idea that we could be invaded not by illegal immigrants, but by militia groups is regrettable. It will end badly. This is from a civilian. So they're getting ready. Have you heard any other news about that? On TV or anywhere?
If part of the information is correct, a lot of the militia groups are heading to the border to really support and back up the military and the border patrol, because there is intelligence, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I did see intelligence that said there was a plan of those already that had infiltrated the U.S. to come armed and attack our troops and border patrol from behind.
So once the war starts, if the militias all move out of their states and go down, that leaves the states wide open, not realizing, of course, that we have been infiltrated and they're all over the place. So a revolution could start anytime at this point. And the timing is absolutely perfect for all this to go down. Here's another headline. Moscow again warns Israel against operations in Syria. A general of the Russian Defense Ministry responded Wednesday to repeated suggestions that Israel had resumed its air operations over Syria with a warning. He said hotheads would adequately assess the current situation in the region and refrain from provocative actions on Syrian territory. The general also reported that Russian advisors are preparing Syrian military personnel for now operating the advanced S-300 air defense system. So obviously then they have Russian advisors, they have Iranian advisors, and they're training the Syrians to operate this. And I've noticed that Israel's really not doing much anymore. What's going on there? What was the latest you heard yesterday? Anything going on, or are they just sitting in the weeds?
No, the latest I've heard is that Israel is trying not to become bogged down in a war with Gaza and the Gaza Strip, because they know that they're surrounded and that Iran is pulling the strings and wants to attack them from all angles. The missile attacks if Israel gets bogged down in a tank war and a troop war inside Gaza, then the missiles from other areas will begin to fly into Israel, and they'll be under attack, and they know that. That's why they're using absolute, unbelievable restraint and not fighting back and not invading Gaza, even though the provocations continue. And one thing about it, Stuart, and this is interesting too, and I'd like your information on this, is that the U.S. now is calling for the Saudis to stop the war, the proxy war, if you will, in Yemen, between Saudi Arabia and Iran, And if you'll recall also, the U.S. is calling on Netanyahu not to fight with the Palestinians. They want to produce a peace treaty. But the only interesting information there is, Stuart, is the fact that you either fight the proxy war or you go fight Iran. Israel's not going to have a lot of choice.
Yeah, they are moving Israel into a position where she has to respond, whether she wants to or not. It's sort of like the Ezekiel 38 war, where the hooks are put into the jaws of Putin and they bring him forth if he's the leader that they're talking about in Ezekiel. So it's like they don't have a choice. What the Lord is actually doing is working his agenda, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. He has an agenda. He has a plan. And that plan is going to be done. He says, I have stretched out my hands upon the nations, and I'm going to do what I have proposed to do, and no one's going to stop me. And so he's maneuvering these nations into position for the great final hurrah of humanity, fallen humanity. He's done everything he can to try and save people from this. They won't listen. They just flat will not listen. When Jesus came down here, he brought us a protocol. I've mentioned this before. But when you go to see the President of the United States, you follow a certain protocol. You follow a plan that they have laid out, and if you do it and you get approved, then you get to see the President. But if you jump the White House fence and try to crash it, you get a bunch of bullets instead. We're not talking about the President of the United States here. We're talking about the God of the universe, the creator of it all. Jesus Christ came down here with a protocol and told us what to do. And people just don't want to do it. So, I don't know. I'm at a loss for all of this. Anyway, here's another headline, Larry. Brinksmanship. Russia announces live fire missile drills in the same waters as NATO Trident juncture drills. Is this to provoke a war? What in the world? Why would they do this?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Stuart. I think the reason this is happening, not only that, if you've seen some of my posts the last few days, China has went on war alert in the South China Sea. And matter of fact, they're eyeing Taiwan at the moment. Every single enemy that America has, Stuart, is watching this situation with the coming Civil War revolution in America, the political unrest in Washington and really around the nation, the election that's about to happen, and the invading hordes from the South. America is in horrible trouble, and she's being undermined within, Stuart, but our enemies are watching and making movements and testing us and probing us every single day, even militarily. And Stuart, this is my question. How long will it be before they know that we're weak enough because of our troubles that they actually move against us? And this is interesting, Stuart. I'd like your opinion here. You remember where it says we would have healed Babylon, but she will not? I think that is exactly what we're seeing, Stuart. The people in America, so many of them hate Trump and America so bad, and the Constitution so bad, they'd rather see America die than live any longer like this.
Yep, the American death wish. We had a doctor who was, I believe he was a heart surgeon, can't think of his name right now, Ron Paul. And the American people would have nothing to do with him. They didn't want anything to do with him. He laid out bit by bit what America had to do to come back. No, they gave him the finger. Then we had a brain surgeon, which is kind of interesting. They gave him the finger as well. You don't do that, folks. The Lord has offered at least two, and if not Trump, if Trump would be included, which I'm not sure he is, but if he was included, 3 strikes and you're out. And the people hate Donald Trump. And it's going to end badly. It really is. and it's going to end rapidly, I believe, when we go down. And I've been watching all these numbers showing up, and I am very, very concerned that if we get through November and December of this year without a major problem developing, then it's going to go into next year. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they've got this well planned. They've got this all set up. And we not only have a skirmish on our southern border, beware of the northern border. And people like Red Elk and the vision he had, most of which, by the way, has already come to pass. It's all come true. In his analysis of what he was shown, of where these troops were going to come down through on the north, Minnesota, the Dakotas, and through there. And when I was up in Canada, I was told that there were a bunch of troops, military troops, up in Queensland. Canada has a no love loss for the United States, and especially for Trump. And according to what I could find out, Canada was told that when this is all over, they will be given part of America and as payment for cooperation. And actually, Canada has a very reasonable right to want to do that. A lot of people don't know it, but we had plans to invade Canada long, long time ago. And, well, what goes around comes around, they say. So we're in a lot of trouble, folks. I hope you have prepared with enough. We don't know. It might be an EMP attack, but there's a big war coming. And it's when it starts, your life is not ever going to be the same. And I can't tell you that the Lord is going to rapture us out of this or not. The taking of the bride of Christ has to occur, but as to when, I guess anybody can argue that. And I'll close with this one, Larry. United Nations, Trump must allow caravan migrants into America. So there you go. The Communist UN is saying we've got to allow these people in, even though they're armed, and it's they're disguised. This is a military operation that's going on. Any last word, Larry?
Oh, I just have to tell people, that so much of America hates Donald Trump. They hate Jesus Christ. So where does that indicate you're going? And I would tell the remnant out there, the ones that love the Lord, you better get your house in order. Quit fooling around.
Yes. Yep. It's time now, folks. It's hard to get your mind around these kind of things because we've lived in a normal America for so many years. We can't even comprehend what it would be like with no power, with enemy troops all around you, with domestic troops that are your enemy. And, betrayal is the order of the day. Remember what the Lord Jesus Christ said. Deception and lies are the hallmark of the last days. You cannot believe or trust your leaders. They're unbelievable. You just can't, which is what I think Psalm 2 is trying to say. Well, thanks a lot anyway, Larry, for coming on. Any last final word?
Yeah, I would just say to people that think they should be gone already, the only people that's missing at the moment is those over the years that have passed away. So we better prepare our minds to walk in an area we never thought we would in America. And
it's all done because the Lord is trying to get our attention. Wake up. It's kind of like the midnight cry. Wake up. The Lord is coming. Go ye out to meet him. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you again on Friday night, the Lord willing, and if we're all still here and we got radio programs. Anyway, good night. Thanks a lot, Larry.